I found out my mother-in-law had been sabotaging my relationship for 2 years. Let me start from the beginning. My name is Mila, I'm 26 years old, and I live in Portland, Oregon. I met my boyfriend Thomas 3 years ago at a coffee shop near the university where I work as a librarian. He's a software engineer, super introverted, kind of nerdy, exactly my type. His mother, Margaret, was always incredibly kind to me from the very first day we met. She insisted I call her Maggie, always invited me to family dinners, gave me expensive birthday and Christmas gifts. I genuinely thought I had hit the jackpot when it came to mothers-in-law. Last year, Thomas and I moved in together into an apartment in Northeast Portland. That's when things started to get weird, so gradually that I couldn't pinpoint what was actually happening. Thomas started growing distant, getting irritated with me over small things. He questioned my decisions, doubted my stories about work, and always seemed to have a negative opinion about my friends and family. I assumed it was stress from work, or maybe anxiety about us living together. Maggie continued to be an angel. Anytime Thomas and I had a fight, she'd show up at our house with homemade food and wise relationship advice. She'd hug me, tell me relationships had ups and downs, and that Thomas was just going through a tough time at work. I felt so grateful to have such a supportive and understanding mother-in-law. She even took me out for Friday manicures to cheer me up after our arguments. The first real red flag happened about 6 months ago. Thomas came home visibly upset after having lunch with his mom. He told me that Maggie mentioned I had been flirting with the barista at Stumptown Coffee when she and I went there together the week before. I was completely confused because that never happened. The barista barely spoke to me except to ask if I wanted oat milk in my latte. When I confronted Maggie about it a few days later, she apologized profusely, saying she must have misinterpreted the situation and was just overly concerned about Thomas. She seemed so sincere that I let it go. But then more incidents started happening. Thomas accused me of telling Maggie that he had anxiety and was on medication, something he had never shared with her. I never said a word to her about it. When I asked Maggie how she knew, she claimed Thomas had told her himself, but Thomas swore he never had. It was a super strange situation, where both had completely different versions of the same conversation. After that, Thomas started receiving weird text messages supposedly from me, sent during times when I was either at work or asleep. Messages saying I was considering breaking up, or that I had bad-mouthed his family to my coworkers. When I showed him my phone to prove I hadn't sent anything, Thomas got even more confused and paranoid. He began questioning my mental stability and honesty constantly. Things got to the point where Thomas suggested we try couples therapy. During our first session, the therapist asked about our support systems. Thomas mentioned how wonderful and supportive his mother was, always trying to help us through rough patches. I agreed, but something in the way the therapist furrowed his brow when Thomas described Maggie's constant interventions made me pause. The therapist gently suggested that it might be healthy to establish some boundaries with outside interference, even if it was well-intentioned. Thomas got defensive, saying his mother only wanted to help. But I started thinking about all the times Maggie showed up right after an argument, as if she knew exactly when we were having problems. I started paying closer attention to patterns. That's when I began to notice strange things around the apartment. Small objects slightly out of place when I got home from work. My hairbrush in the bathroom drawer when I always left it on the counter. My bottle of vitamins in the kitchen when I always kept it in the bedroom. Thomas insisted he hadn't touched anything, and I started wondering if I was losing my mind or just forgetful. The turning point happened 3 weeks ago, completely by accident. I was cleaning the apartment for a visit from my sister when I found a small black device behind our TV. I initially thought it was part of the sound system, but when I looked closer, it had a blinking LED light. I had never seen it before. I took the device to my friend Marcus, who works in tech, and he confirmed my worst fear. It was a listening device, one of those you can buy on Amazon for $50. Marcus helped me scan the apartment with an RF detector he had. We found 4 more devices hidden around the apartment, one behind the bedroom mirror, one inside a fake plant in the living room, one stuck under the kitchen table, and another inside the bathroom cabinet. Marcus traced the signals and found that they were transmitting to a receiver about 2 miles away. When we checked the address on Google Maps, it was exactly where Maggie lived. I was completely in shock. My mother-in-law had planted surveillance devices in our home and had been listening to us for who knows how long. All those times she magically showed up after arguments, all the private information she somehow knew. All the strange accusations Thomas received about things I never said. Suddenly, it all made sense. But the story gets even more disturbing. Marcus suggested we install a hidden camera to catch Maggie in the act if she ever came back to check or replace the bugs. We left the original devices in place and installed a tiny camera pointing at the front door. We didn't have to wait long. 2 days later, while Thomas was at work and I was supposedly at the library late, Maggie used a key, apparently a copy she'd made, to let herself into our apartment. She checked all the devices, replaced batteries in some, and then did something that made me physically sick. She sat down at my personal computer and began creating fake social media accounts in my name. She created a Tinder profile using my photos, an Instagram account where she posted pictures of me with suggestive captions, and even a LinkedIn profile where she changed my relationship status to single. She also messed with the settings on my phone to forward certain text messages to a number I didn't recognize, probably a burner phone she had. Marcus and I watched the footage multiple times to be absolutely sure of what we were seeing. Maggie had been systematically trying to destroy my relationship by creating fake evidence that I was cheating or planning to leave Thomas. She was fabricating conversations, creating fake profiles, and using the listening devices to time her interference perfectly. The sickest part of all of this is that she was doing it while pretending to be my biggest supporter and best friend. All those Friday manicures, all those comforting hugs after arguments, all those motherly words of wisdom. She was consoling me for problems she herself was creating. I brought all the evidence to Thomas on a Friday night. At first, he couldn't process what he was seeing. He watched the footage 3 times before he started crying. He said he'd always been really close to his mom, especially after his dad died 5 years ago, and he never imagined she'd be capable of something like this. Thomas told me Maggie had always been overprotective and possessive, but he thought it was just normal maternal love. He remembered several ex-girlfriends who said Maggie didn't like them, but he always assumed they were being dramatic or jealous. Now he realized Maggie had probably sabotaged all of his past serious relationships. We decided to confront Maggie together. Thomas called her and said we needed to talk and arranged a visit to her house that Sunday. I put one of Marcus's hidden cameras in my pocket to record the conversation. Thomas started by asking directly if she had been in our apartment without permission. Maggie denied it completely, saying she'd never do such a thing. Then Thomas showed her a few screenshots from the security footage. Her reaction was the scariest thing I've ever seen. For a moment, she went completely blank, like she had shut down. Then she smiled, a cold, calculated smile I had never seen before. Instead of denying or apologizing, Maggie looked directly at me and said I wasn't good enough for her son, that she could tell I was going to hurt him, and she was just protecting him from inevitable pain. She said none of his girlfriends were ever good enough, and she always found ways to make them show their true colors. Thomas was horrified. He asked how many relationships she had sabotaged, and she casually admitted to doing it with all of his serious girlfriends since college. 5 relationships destroyed over 8 years. She talked about it like it was normal and necessary, like a mother protecting her cub. The most disturbing part was when she said she had been planning to escalate her tactics with me because I was proving more resilient than the others. She had considered planting drugs in my car and calling the police, or fabricating evidence that I was stealing money from work. She wanted to make me look like a criminal, so Thomas would finally leave me. Thomas cut off all contact with her immediately. We changed all the locks on our apartment, deleted all the fake profiles she had created, and Thomas blocked her on every platform. We also reported the surveillance devices to the police, although the detectives said it would be hard to press charges without more concrete evidence of financial harm or physical threats. The hardest thing for Thomas has been coming to terms with the fact that the person he trusted most was actively trying to sabotage his happiness for years. He's now doing individual therapy to process years of manipulation and gaslighting he didn't even realize was happening. Our couple's therapy has also been eye-opening. The therapist said situations like this are more common than people think, especially with parents who have narcissistic or borderline personality disorders. Maggie showed classic signs of a mother who sees her child as an extension of herself, and any romantic partner as a threat to her identity. Our relationship is healing, slowly. Thomas has apologized countless times for doubting me and not recognizing the patterns earlier. We're learning to trust each other again and to set healthy boundaries with family interference. Maggie has tried to reach out multiple times through different phone numbers and fake social media accounts. She swings between profusely apologizing and blaming me for alienating her from her son. We've documented all attempts at contact in case we need a restraining order in the future. The scariest part of this whole thing is realizing how long it went on without us noticing. If I hadn't accidentally found that first device, Maggie might have eventually succeeded in destroying our relationship. How many other couples has she broken up? How many people are living through something similar without knowing? Thomas and I are stronger now, but we've definitely been changed by this experience. We've learned that manipulation can come from the most unexpected places and be executed in deeply calculated ways. We've also learned the importance of trusting our instincts when something feels off, even if we can't yet explain why. If anyone reading this recognizes similar patterns in your life, trust yourself. Manipulators are experts at making you question your reality. Document everything, seek outside support, and don't be afraid to dig deeper when something doesn't feel right. I'm sharing this story because I'm still processing everything that happened, and because I hope it can help someone else who might be going through something similar. Psychological manipulation is real. It can come from anyone, and the effects can be devastating if not identified and confronted.
Comment. What would you do in this situation? If you like this video, don't forget to like and share so we can bring you more stories like this. Keep an eye out for more stories. Hope you have a good day.